What's up, everybody? I'm back for my second attempt this year at doing another video lesson. The first one didn't go as well as I planned, so hopefully this one's at least a little more interesting than just looking at me talking for 20 minutes. I'm going to try to make today's lesson a little shorter if I can, just because obviously we haven't met in the past 3 weeks, so there's probably a lot of stuff you guys need to catch up on. If you want to make sure you are on track, you should be on 3.1 this week. That means you need to have completed the review. So some of you might be doing that today. And if any of you do complete the review today, I'll make sure to check with the leaders and find out I will have a prize for you next week, but that's only if you completed your review for section 2. So we should be on 3.1. As far as announcements, I don't have a lot right now. I know the Awana Grand Prix is coming up, and I know, well, I enjoy it a lot. And in the years past, I know that we haven't had a lot of involvement from Trek, but it sounds like Commander Dave is trying real hard to get more people in it this year. So like he's invited the church, he's invited the Hosanna Christian School, which is obviously here at church, to compete as well. So if you guys do, you'll have more than probably just 1 or 2 people you're competing against. So it's pretty fun. You should do that. That's coming up. That is Saturday the 25th, I believe. Obviously Betsy's out front selling cars if you want one. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your holiday break, had a good Christmas and a good New Year. And we're back to Awana again each week. So I'll pray and we'll get into our lesson. Dear Lord, we thank you for giving us time to be here and to learn more about you and try to grow closer to you. We thank you just for the start of this year and just another opportunity to serve you this year, to take a little more time out of our daily lives to focus on you and to make sure that we're doing what you have called for us. I pray that you would just help us learn. We'd have open ears and open hearts tonight, Lord, and that we would just have a good time. And in your name, amen. All right, so this week we are talking about fears. Everybody has them, some of them bigger, some of them smaller, some of them might be a little bit more minor, like you get a little bit of social anxiety around your groups, or you've had more daunting things like when you're right about to crash on your bike, you have a pretty big fear. Or maybe some of you have been like in a car accident or something a little more serious where it was kind of scary for a little while. But everybody has them and they affect us, and they especially affect our physical and our spiritual lives. So we're going to be going through kind of a fear, a legitimate one, that the disciples had to go through with Jesus. But first, I kind of liked the intro activity in your guys' book that had you rating 1 through 10. I wish I was there with you so I could hear what kind of some of your lists were, because you can get some pretty various answers on things people are really scared of or things people aren't scared of at all. But it was kind of fun. So real quick, it had you take 10 things if you've done 3.1 already. It had you take 10 things and list them, to 10 being you're least afraid of it to 1 being the thing you're most afraid of on their little list. So going down my list, starting from least to most, number 10 was clowns. Not really scared of clowns. Not really a thing for me. Not a lot of murderous clowns out there as much as people want to believe that there is. Number 9 was thunderstorms. Chances of getting hit by lightning extremely, extremely slim. Not really a scary thing. If anything, a cozy thing, if you're inside anyway. Number 8, spiders. Not scared of spiders. Not really. I mean, I'm not going to go put my hand out there and let it crawl onto my hand freely, but not really scared of them if I see one here. Number 7, snakes. All right, now here's where, depending on the snake and the situation, I might be a little scared. Like if I'm walking around out in like Central Oregon and I come across a rattlesnake, I'm going to be a little scared. But if somebody has like a pet snake, I'm not going to be scared of that at all. So some of the things on this list were kind of like, this is very situationally dependent. Number 6 was being lost. I feel like that's more of a fear when you're a little kid and you don't know anything. Like when you're lost in the grocery store and it's like, I don't know where my parents are. That can be a little scary. But as an adult, if being lost scares you, I guess you must be really bad at asking for directions or finding things, unless you're lost in like the middle of the desert or stranded on like a mountainside somewhere. I guess that could be a little scary. Number 5 for me was earthquakes. Again, if there's a giant earthquake that's swallowing half the United States, that's pretty scary. But if it's just like a little earthquake that just shakes your house a little bit, not that scary. So we need a little bit of context here. Number 4 for me would be heights. Heights can be a little bit nerve-wracking for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like climbing up the really tall ladders that they had us do for some of my training to be a firefighter was not my favorite part. Did not enjoy that. Number 3, germs. And I'm not like a germaphobe necessarily, but there's some pretty nasty bacterias out there that legitimately should be, I don't know, taken seriously. So I don't really like that. I don't like the idea of touching something that's been obviously exposed to something gross. Number two, small places. And it's just like small places. I mean, like I don't get claustrophobic in like a sleeping bag, but I do recall we had this training that we would do when I was in my academy for firefighting, where they put you in a room that has no windows, and it has basically this course that you have to climb through while wearing all of your gear and like a mask and breathing air. And there's a part of it where it's like a diminishing clearance, where it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're wearing all this big heavy gear, and you have this bottle that you have to take off your back and push in front of you, but you're still breathing out of it, and you're just scooting one shoulder at a time. I did not like that. That was not fun in the slightest. I mean, I did it, but I will not do it again unless they ask me to and make me do it, because I did not like that. I got pretty claustrophobic there. And then my number one thing on this list that I dislike the most, public speaking. But don't worry, you guys aren't the public. It doesn't count. But not my favorite thing. If I ever had to give a speech, or if they asked me to say something in front of the church, that stuff makes me really nervous. I do not like public speaking. But anyways, these are just some very light examples of things some people are afraid of. I'm sure some of those things were very different on your guys' list than mine. Some of you might love public speaking. Who knows? But so we're going to see something that had the disciples pretty scared, and kind of how they reacted to it, and how Jesus used it as an example to teach things to them. So we will be in Luke chapter 8, verses 22 through 25. So again, that's Luke chapter 8, verses 22 through 25. So reading it out of the ESV Bible, it goes, "One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side of the lake.' So they set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep, and a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him, saying, 'Master, Master, we are perishing.' And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was calm. He said to them, 'Where is your faith?' And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, 'Who then is this, that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?'" All right. Oops, just lost my place. Hold on. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of perspective about this lake when it says, "Let's go across the lake," because you guys, when you hear lake, you might picture like Vancouver Lake or something like that. You're like, that's not that big. I mean, what happened out there that was that scary? So a lot of times the Sea of Galilee was called a lake. And now the Sea of Galilee is 13 miles long and 7 miles wide. And a lot of the fishermen who were Jesus' disciples knew it very well, because they fished on it quite a bit. So just when they says, "We went to cross the lake," they don't want you to imagine that they're in this tiny lake that you can see both sides, and all of a sudden it just started being a raging seas when they could literally see shore. No, this was a lot scarier situation than that. They were in some pretty deep peril here. So, and as they sailed, he fell asleep. So this is just a quick picture of how I think a lot of us forget that Jesus was as much human as he was God. So this wasn't like he went to bed because he knew that this was going to happen, so he's sleeping with one eye open, like, I want to see how the disciples are going to react here to this raging storm. He was probably pretty tired. I imagine like the pace of Jesus' mission was pretty aggressive, and the amount of people he's talked to, how much they had to travel, how they traveled on foot. He was probably legitimately tired, so he must have been exhausted, and he went to sleep. So, and then continuing on, it says, "And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger." So this lake was nearly 700 feet below sea level, and it was surrounded by mountains. So there were deep ravines in the mountains that acted like funnels for the wind when they would go through there, and they would pick up some pretty impressive speed before they get to the lake. And when that cold air would collide with warm air, it would create hurricane conditions with like 20-foot waves almost without warning. Like, it was impressive how quickly this could go from a pretty mild day to an extremely perilous condition just because of the topography of the area. So they had been caught unexpectedly in a hurricane, and basically, like, not an oversized rowboat, but it wasn't a huge boat. When I was trying to read about it, it was like, it's a boat that could fit about 15 people, maybe had one mast with a sail, was probably about 22 feet long. So we're not talking like the Mayflower or something the Pilgrims came over on. It was a small boat with 20-foot waves. I don't know if you've ever seen a 20-foot wave, but it's pretty impressive sight to see, even when it's way off in the distance. Like, so you can tell it's like, that is a big wave. Pretty scary. So the disciples were caught unexpectedly in the middle of the night in a hurricane in a boat with Jesus sleeping, which is, I feel like, what a lot of us tend to think when we have something pretty overwhelming that takes over our life pretty suddenly. We almost have this thought in our head that's like, does Jesus or does God know what I'm going through right now? Is he asleep to it? Or maybe he doesn't even care. Like, that's an even worse thing. But we've had those thoughts. I'll admit it. I've had some of those thoughts too, where I wonder, it's like, how much does God really care about the struggles I'm having, whether big or small? So that's kind of what the disciples were like too. They're like, he is sleeping when we could legitimately die at any moment here. Does he even care what's going on? So in the Gospel of Mark, it says, like, to parallel when Mark was telling the same story here in chapter 4, verse 38, they say to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" So they legitimately asked you, it's like, do you even care what's happening right now? So, and then it says, "And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was great calm." So this response was immediate. It wasn't like a slow thing where he's like, "Be still," and then 20 minutes later, things had calmed down and the winds had died down. He basically said, "Be still," and that was it. It was done. If you can, like, picture yourself as the disciples, like, just maybe like a couple seconds ago, they were waking up to Jesus saying, "We are going to die. Do you even care?" Like, I picture them like huddled on the side of the boat. There's another 20-foot wave and they think, this is the one. This is going to capsize us. We're not going to get saved. Because, I mean, this is obviously Jesus times. There wasn't a Coast Guard. There was no one that was going to come save them. They weren't wearing flotation devices. What some people would do at that time was they would tie themselves to the mast of the boat so they wouldn't get tossed off of it. But then if the boat sinks, you're tied to it and you're sinking with it. There's not a good option. They legitimately thought this might be their last moment. So they're like huddled up in a corner and they're expecting that wave to hit any minute. You open one eye and you're like, everything has changed. It is completely calm. There is not a wave anywhere. The sea is like glass at this point. Like, immediate sudden change. This isn't something that just like, oh, the winds just died down and now things are starting to chill. It was immediately chill. So then Jesus' response to them was, "Where is your faith?" And in my opinion, this is a pretty gracious answer. He could have really chastised them here. It's like, do you have any faith at all? Have you guys failed Faith 101 again? It's like, you knew I was in here. I said, let us go to the other side. I didn't say, let us go to the middle of the sea and die. You all immediately forgot that. But no, that's not how he responds at all. He just says, where did your faith go? So the problem isn't that Jesus stops looking after us. It's the problem is that we stop looking to him when things are going that poorly. With that response, the Lord allowed the disciples to marvel not at their lack of faith, but at the demonstration of his power. Instead of him chastising them, saying, "See what I can do, you shouldn't have been scared," he just says, "I know you have faith. Trust in me a little more." And he gave them a pretty awesome example of, like, this is why you can trust in me. So this is when they said, "Who then is this, that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?" They literally just saw this guy tell the water like it was a dog, "Lay down." It just immediately laid down. So in conclusion here, this is one of many stories in the Bible that talk about how following Jesus is not going to be easy. Like, this is definitely a theme. If you read the Bible, it is over and over and over again stated, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really scary. You might not even think you might survive one of these times. Like, he's really warning you, this is not going to be an easy journey. Obviously, he just saved all of his disciples that day, but a lot of his disciples ended up martyrs. They all ended up dying for their faith. He didn't save them in those moments, and he had his reasons. So the Lord gets up graciously and intervenes, and then uses it as an opportunity to reveal who he is, and then what we need to become, which is people who truly go to him when things are beyond us, when we are scared out of our minds, instead of the very human reaction, which is to doubt, to fear, to cower. We can look to him and be encouraged. So we can tell him about our fears and our troubles and our dead ends, and he's even showing us here that he can even take our accusations when we say things like, "You must not care about me if you let this happen." How can God care about anybody if all these terrible things are happening in the world? I'm sure all of you could think of something going on right now where you're like, how is God okay with something like that happening? And then obviously this is the same thing the disciples said to him. It's like, "Teacher, do you not care that we are dying?" These are questions people are asking every day. And it shows in the Bible, it doesn't hurt him when we ask those questions. those won't make him feel like, well, I'm not going to answer that guy's prayers anymore now that he said that. No, not at all. The disciples learned that not only does he truly care, he's trying to embolden us and show us that even when he doesn't necessarily perform a miracle, that he is in control and that we can at all times completely trust him. And I know we weren't on that boat, but I kind of hope that hearing this story emboldens us too. A lot of times I feel like with a lot of different sermons and listening to pastors, all of the lessons and stuff come across as just very general. But that's obviously, I don't know what each one of you is going through. I don't know what fears you guys may have right now, or if you'd even call them fears. Maybe you're not actually scared. Maybe you're just anxious about something. But I always encourage you, with anything you hear about this, any lesson you read in the Bible, really think about, how does it apply to my life? What is it, if I think right now, what is my biggest fear right now? Like, each of you really stop and think, what am I most afraid of? And how can I truly give that to God and see this example and know that he can take care of it in whatever way he sees fit, and that we don't need to fear it as much as anyone in the world would look at your fear and probably say, like, yep, that makes sense. I'd be scared of that, maybe to a different degree than you, but I'd be scared of it. But we don't have to be, because of what Jesus did and how much that can change just how we live and how we speak to people if we truly believe it. So again, with any lesson, anything I say, anything you read in the Bible, anything you hear at your church or somewhere else, just really think about, how does this apply to me? And how can I put this into effect in my life? And that's my challenge for you guys. So with that, head to your small groups. Good luck. I hope you have enough time to say all your verses or get caught up. So I will see you guys all next week. I know I've been gone a lot. It's probably going to happen a few more times this year. So I'll keep trying to make these videos interesting. Hopefully I don't totally goof this one up, and I can put at least a couple interesting graphics or something in here. So, all right, we'll see you guys next week.